people of Thamud, a civilization that forgot its soul. They were known as the People of Thamud, a tribe so advanced, so powerful, so brilliantly skilled that travelers would stop and stare at their cities carved directly into mountains. They lived in northern Arabia, in a land where rocky cliffs rose like silent giants. But to Thamud, those cliffs were not obstacles. They were opportunities. They cut homes into stone the way others carved wood. They shaped pillars, chambers, and halls with geometric precision that stunned anyone who passed by. On the outside, Thamud looked unstoppable, but on the inside, something was breaking. Their technological strength gave them arrogance. Their wealth made them careless, and slowly, their spiritual heart began to die. They believed their power came only from themselves, and that belief blinded them to the truth. They started worshipping idols, lifeless creations made by their own hands. They bowed before stones while ignoring the one who created both stone and soul. Yet even in their pride, they knew one thing for sure: they were unmatched. Their cities stood like fortresses. Their armies were feared. Their farms flourished. Their wells never ran dry. So when they heard stories of destroyed nations before them, they laughed. Who, they said, could ever overpower us? But power without humility is always borrowed time, and arrogance has a way of attracting its own destruction. In the midst of this rising pride, Allah sent them a man from among themselves, a man they had known since childhood, a man who carried honesty in his speech and purity in his character. His name was Saleh, and he came to remind them of a truth they had forgotten. Power is a gift, not a god. But before we enter his message, before the warnings, before the miracle that would shake their entire society, we must understand the world he walked into. Thamud was not just a tribe. It was a mindset that believed success makes you untouchable, a mindset that confuses blessings with entitlement, a mindset that feels so secure in this life that it forgets the next. Their cities were carved deep into mountains, but their hearts were carved deeper into pride. And when a nation reaches that level of arrogance, a prophet's message becomes the ultimate test, not of their strength, but of their soul. She-Camel, a miracle they didn't want to believe. When Prophet Saleh has delivered his message, worship Allah alone, the one who created you and blessed you. The leaders of Thamud didn't respond with reflection, they responded with ego. They couldn't accept that a man who once walked among them as an equal was now calling them to humility. His truth challenged their pride, and pride never surrenders easily. So the elite of Thamud came up with a plan. They said, Saleh, if you truly speak for your Lord, then bring us a sign. Not just any sign, a miracle of our choosing. It was a way to corner him, a way to mock him, a way to guarantee that he would fail. They pointed toward a massive boulder that stood like a mountain split in half. From this rock, they demanded, bring out a camel. Not an ordinary camel, a she-camel, ready to give birth. If your God can do that, then we will believe. The crowd smirked. The leaders crossed their arms. They were sure they had set up the impossible. Prophet Saleh has warned them. What if Allah gives you exactly what you asked for? Will you truly believe? They nodded with forced confidence, unaware that their request was about to expose their own lies. Saleh prayed. The earth trembled. The massive rock shook from its foundation and then split open like a door, being forced wide by a power they could not comprehend. Light burst from the crack, and from within emerged a living, breathing miracle, a towering she-camel unlike anything they had ever seen. Her presence was majestic, calm, and unearthly. Her eyes carried a quiet warning. The crowd fell silent. The leaders froze. There was no explanation, except the truth they had tried so hard to deny. Saleh said, "This is the She-Camel of Allah. She is a sign for you. Do not harm her. Let her drink from the well one day, and you drink the next." For a moment, belief touched their hearts. For a moment, Thamud realized they were face to face with divine power. But miracles don't change arrogant hearts, they expose them. This She-Camel would not only be a sign, she would become the greatest test Thamud had ever faced. The warning they heard but never listened to. The moment the She-Camel appeared, the people of Thamud felt something unfamiliar, fear mixed with awe. Her presence was too real, too extraordinary to deny. But instead of surrendering their pride, many tried to bury it under excuses. Deep down, they knew a miracle had just walked out of a mountain. Outwardly, they pretended nothing had changed. Prophet Saleh stood before them and delivered a message that was both simple and serious. This She-Camel is a sign from Allah. Treat her with respect. Give her her day to drink, and do not touch her with harm. If you violate this command, punishment will come upon you. It was not just a warning, it was a lifeline. He reminded them, your homes carved in mountains, your prosperity, your strength, all of it is from Allah. Be grateful. Worship Him alone. Do not let arrogance destroy you. But warnings to proud hearts sound like insults. The leaders of Thamud felt threatened. Their influence, their power, their control over the tribe, it all began slipping the moment the miracle arrived. People whispered, Saleh might be right. This is a sign from God. That whisper was dangerous. So the chiefs pushed harder. They mocked. They spread rumors. They raised their voices over truth. They told the people, if Saleh controls what we drink, and when we drink, what will he control next? They accused him of trying to dominate the tribe. They twisted his warning into manipulation. Yet Saleh has never asked for wealth, or authority, or loyalty. He only asked them to obey Allah. Meanwhile, the She-Camel followed the rules exactly. On her day, she drank from the well peacefully and provided milk so abundant it could feed an entire clan. Her presence was gentle, a daily reminder of divine mercy. But to the arrogant, her gentleness felt like irritation. Her existence was a spotlight exposing their rebellion. Saleh continued to warn them again and again. He spoke of nations before them who were destroyed for rejecting the truth. He reminded them that success without gratitude is a trap. He urged them to return to the path of humility. But Thamud had grown comfortable in their pride. They didn't want truth. They wanted freedom from accountability. And that desire pushed them closer to a decision that would seal their fate forever. The politics that blinded an entire nation. The miracle of the She-Camel should have united Thamud, but instead, it exposed the fault lines already running through their society, beneath their confident attitude and carved stone mansions. The tribe was split into two camps. Those whose hearts softened toward truth, and those who clung desperately to their power. The leaders, wealthy, influential, and terrified of losing control, began crafting a strategy. They understood something important. They could not deny the miracle, but they could control the narrative around it. So they turned the situation into politics. They whispered among the people, "If you follow Saleh, you will lose the freedom you enjoy today." They asked, "Who is he to tell us when we can drink from our own well?" They warned, "Today he controls the water. Tomorrow he will control your homes." They weren't fighting a camel. They weren't fighting a message. They were fighting the fear of losing power. To keep their grip strong, the leaders targeted the youth, the reckless, fearless, impulsive young men who craved status. The chiefs fed them pride, fired up their ego, and convinced them that Saleh was a threat to the tribe's identity. Soon, the followers of Saleh, the humble, the thoughtful, the sincere, became a minority. They were mocked, insulted, and pressured to abandon their faith. Families divided, friendships cracked. The tribe that once boasted unity was now choking on internal conflict. Behind closed doors, the chiefs met regularly. Their voices were low but filled with anger. "This camel is ruining everything," one said. "She is turning people towards Saleh," another added. "If we don't stop this, our authority will disappear." And then came the most dangerous idea. They decided to turn the miracle into a burden. They exaggerated her drinking. They complained that she was too large, too disruptive. They accused her of damaging their farms, though she harmed nothing. Slowly, they converted public doubt into public resentment. Saleh watched all of this with a heavy heart. He knew the prophecy: when arrogance grips a soul too tightly, even a mountain splitting before their eyes cannot break it. Still, he remained patient. Still, he preached truth. Still, he urged them toward repentance. But the politics of Thamud had grown poisonous, and once a nation chooses pride over guidance, the next step is always the same: a step toward destruction. A conspiracy born in the shadows. The chiefs of Thamud had tried everything: mocking Saleh, twisting his message, weaponizing public opinion. But the miracle of the She-Camel kept exposing their lies. No matter how hard they pushed, her presence reminded the people that Allah's power stood above every leader, every tribe, every civilization. So the chiefs shifted from politics to conspiracy. It started with a secret meeting under the cover of night. Only the most aggressive and influential men were invited, especially the 9 young troublemakers known for violence and intimidation. They were the kind of men who feared nothing and respected no one, not even their own elders. The leaders spoke carefully. "The camel is the root of our problems," one whispered. "Saleh's influence grows because of her," another added. "If we eliminate the sign," a third said, "we eliminate his message." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Killing the She-Camel. It wasn't just a crime. It was a declaration of war against the Creator who sent her. But arrogance has a way of drowning wisdom. The 9 reckless men smirked. To them, this wasn't about faith or morality. It was about reputation. Destroying the camel would prove their dominance, their bravery, their loyalty to the tribe's elite. They saw it as a chance to carve their names into the darkest chapter of Thamud's history. Meanwhile, outside these meetings, the camel continued living peacefully. She drank on her day, grazed on the mountainside, and provided milk that fed the needy. The believers saw her as a mercy. The arrogant saw her as a threat. Prophet Saleh has warned them one last time. Do not harm her. Your Lord is testing you. Do not fail this test as nations before you failed. But warnings don't reach ears that have already chosen disobedience. The conspirators followed the camel across the valley, hiding behind boulders with weapons ready. They waited for the moment she lowered her long neck to drink. Then, like predators, they struck, cruel, swift, and shameless. The miracle that came out of a mountain fell onto the dust of Thamud. When news reached the tribe, the ground itself seemed to stand still. The believers cried, the children stared in fear, and the arrogant celebrated, convinced that they had defeated a sign from the heavens. But what they actually defeated was their final chance at mercy, silence that fell before the storm. When the She-Camel was killed, a darkness spread through Thamud, not a darkness of night, but a darkness of the soul. The moment the miracle hit the dust, the people of Thamud crossed a line from which there was no return. The believers were devastated. The children hid in fear. Even the mountains seemed to echo with a quiet warning. And then Prophet Saleh has arrived. His face carried sorrow deeper than words. He looked at the lifeless body of the camel, then at the men who stood proudly beside their crime, and he knew what this meant. The sign had been rejected. The test had been failed. Saleh said to them, his voice firm yet trembling with grief, "You have chosen destruction over mercy. You have killed the sign of Allah. Now enjoy your homes for 3 more days. After that, a punishment will come upon you. 3 days, 72 hours, a countdown that would seal the fate of an entire nation." The chiefs laughed. Is that it? They mocked. 3 days. We have survived worse. They convinced the people that nothing would happen. They threw parties, roasted meat, and celebrated their victory. But deep inside, something had already changed. On the first day, their faces turned pale strange, sickly, unnaturally white. The believers knew this was the first sign. The arrogant pretended everything was normal, but fear quietly tightened around their hearts. On the second day, their faces turned red, burning red, as if the heat of what was coming had already touched them. Panic spread, but pride kept their tongues silent. On the third day, their faces turned black dark as night, a color that carried the weight of their destiny. Mothers held their children tighter. Men who once boasted strength now trembled. That night was the last night Thamud ever lived. Just before dawn, the sky split with a roar thunderous, piercing blast sent by Allah. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a sound so powerful it crushed their hearts where they stood. Homes carved in mountains offered no safety. Wealth, strength, technology, none of it mattered. In a single moment, every soul that rejected truth fell silent. When the sun rose, the valley of Thamud stood still. The grand mansions were untouched. The carvings remained flawless, but the people were gone. A civilization that once boasted immortality vanished without a trace except for the ruins that still whisper their story today. The ruins that still whisper their warning. Centuries passed, and the story of Thamud lived on not through their voices, but through the silence of their abandoned city. Today, The world knows this place as Madain Saleh, a landscape frozen in time. Travelers who approach it describe an eerie feeling, as if the wind itself carries memories of a fallen nation. The ruins rise out of the desert like giant stone ghosts. Tall facades carved with sharp precision stand untouched by time. Doorways shaped with perfect symmetry. Chambers hollowed deep into mountains. Entire neighborhoods sculpted from rock. There are no bricks, no mortar, just raw mountain transformed by human skill. Archaeologists, historians, explorers, all of them agree on one thing. Thamud was far ahead of its time. Their engineering was extraordinary. Their stonework was unmatched. Their creativity rivaled civilizations many believed to be superior. But the ruins carry something more powerful than architectural brilliance. They carry a message. Visitors often say that Madain Saleh feels too perfect, too silent. You can walk through the pathways, step inside carved homes, run your hand across the cold stone walls, and not hear a single echo of life. It feels preserved, protected, untouched, almost as if the valley itself refuses to let the ruins decay, preserving them as a lesson for the world. Researchers study the structures, admire the craftsmanship, and map out the city's layout. But Prophet Saleh's message isn't found in the stone. It's found in the emptiness between the stones. A civilization this advanced shouldn't have collapsed. A society this strong shouldn't have vanished. According to every measure, architecture, agriculture, defense, Thamud should have thrived for centuries. But no nation survives spiritual rebellion. Archaeology can tell us how they lived, but revelation tells us why they died. Walking through Madain Saleh today is like walking through a warning. Every carved pillar whispers, strength cannot save you. Technology cannot save you. Pride will destroy even the greatest of nations. You see massive tombs built by hands that once felt invincible. You see houses carved high into cliffs by people who thought they had conquered nature. But nature stands while they lie silent. Madain Saleh is not just a historical site. It's a museum of consequences. A reminder carved into mountains by people who forgot who gave them their gifts. Their story was written in stone, but their fate was written by their choices. The mercy of a prophet, even after the fall. When the thunderous punishment struck Thamud, the valley fell silent, but Prophet Saleh did not celebrate. He did not stand over the ruins with satisfaction. Instead, his heart collapsed with grief. These were his people. He grew up with them, laughed with them, walked among them. He had warned them not out of anger, but out of deep compassion. And now, the people he loved were gone. Saleh has walked among the silent homes carved into the rock. The same homes that once echoed with laughter and pride. His footsteps were soft, but his voice carried the weight of sorrow when he said, "O my people, I conveyed to you the message of my Lord. I wished the best for you, but you did not love those who advise." That sentence wasn't just a farewell, it was a reflection of his mission. Prophets aren't sent to win arguments. They're sent to save hearts. And when hearts refuse salvation, the pain rests heavily on the prophet. Saleh's compassion began long before their destruction. He warned them gently. He reasoned with them patiently. He endured their insults quietly. He prayed for them secretly, even when they plotted against him, even when they called him a liar, even when they murdered the miracle. Sent for their guidance, he still hoped they would turn back. His mission was never revenge. His mission was mercy. And even after the punishment, even as he walked away from a silent valley, that mercy didn't fade. Saleh didn't leave with bitterness. He left with sadness, with prayer, with reflection. He knew that guidance is not forced, it's chosen. And Thamud had chosen arrogance over truth. His compassion teaches us something profound. You can give your best to people. You can warn them, guide them, love them, but you can't change their destiny if they don't want to change their direction. Prophet Saleh has, and the believers eventually left the ruins behind, moving on to a new land. But he carried the memory of Thamud with him forever. Every carved mountain peak reminded him of a nation that had everything except humility. His story isn't just about destruction. It's about the heart of a prophet who cared enough to cry for his people, even after they rejected him. That compassion is what makes a prophet extraordinary, not power, but mercy. When pride becomes louder than truth, the story of Thamud is not just about miracles and punishment. It's about a battle that every human faces. Pride versus obedience. These two forces shaped the destiny of an entire nation, and they continue to shape the destiny of individuals and societies today. The people of Thamud weren't ignorant. They weren't weak. They weren't lacking intelligence or resources. In fact, they were one of the most advanced civilizations of their time. Their mistake wasn't inability, it was attitude. When Saleh has called them to worship the one who created them, their refusal had nothing to do with belief and everything to do with ego. Pride told them, "We are powerful. We carved mountains. We control our land. We don't need to submit." Obedience whispered, "Everything you have is a blessing. Be grateful, be humble." But pride shouts louder than humility unless you train your heart to hear the whisper. The She-Camel wasn't just a miracle. She was a mirror. Through her, Allah revealed what lived inside the hearts of Thamud. Some saw mercy, others saw inconvenience. Believers saw a sign. Arrogant leaders saw a threat to their authority. That's how pride works. It doesn't reject truth because it's unclear. It rejects truth because truth demands change, and change demands humility. Saleh has stood before them again and again, offering guidance without force, mercy without expectation. Obedience to Allah would have cost them nothing, but their pride convinced them it would cost them everything. The chiefs argued, "Why should we listen to a man who grew up as one of us?" Translation: we can't accept the truth if it comes through someone ordinary. They weren't rejecting Saleh. They were rejecting the idea of lowering themselves. This is the tragedy of Thamud. They lost everything trying to protect their pride. They destroyed a miracle trying to protect their ego. They defied a prophet trying to protect their authority. But obedience is not slavery. Obedience is freedom, freedom from arrogance, from insecurity, from illusions of control. It realigns a person with purpose, clarity, and gratitude. Thamud chose pride, and pride destroyed them long before the punishment arrived. Their downfall began the moment they said, "Who is greater than us?" The ruins of Madain Solace stand today as evidence that strength without humility is a disaster waiting to happen. And the story reminds us that in the battle between pride and obedience, only one path leads to peace, and it's not the louder one. The echoes of Thamud in our modern world. The story of Prophet Saleh and the people of Thamud isn't just ancient history, it's a mirror held up to today's world. Their ruins may be silent, but their lessons speak louder than ever. And if we listen carefully, we'll hear that the mistakes of Thamud are the same mistakes humanity continues to repeat. Thamud had technology, architecture, and wealth. We have skyscrapers, AI, global networks, and unlimited information. Thamud carved mountains. We carve entire planets with machines. Their power made them arrogant. Our power often does the same. The first lesson is clear. Advancement doesn't guarantee survival. Humility does. Thamud believed nothing could destroy them. Nations today often think the same. But history shows that civilizations fall not when they lack strength, but when they lack gratitude, morality, and unity. Success without humility always leads to collapse. The second lesson: miracles don't change, hearts' choices do. Thamud watched a living miracle walk out of a mountain, but their pride was stronger than their faith. Today, we see signs everywhere: the complexity of life, the balance of nature, the vastness of the universe, yet many still deny the Creator behind it all. The third lesson: voices of truth require courage, and listening to them requires even more. Saleh spoke with compassion, patience, and clarity. But the loudest voices in Thamud were not the truthful ones, they were the arrogant leaders who feared losing control. Modern society faces the same battle: truth versus noise, wisdom versus ego, guidance versus manipulation. The fourth lesson: destroying guidance destroys opportunity. Thamud didn't just kill a camel, they killed their last chance at mercy. Sometimes in life, people push away the very reminder meant to save them. They reject advice, mock wisdom, and silence the voices that call them to better paths. And finally, every blessing is a test, and every test reveals the heart. Thamud was blessed with land, strength, and skill, but they used those blessings to rise in arrogance instead of gratitude. Our world is filled with blessings too, and the story of Thamud asks each of us, what will you do with yours? The tale of Saleh ends with destruction, but its purpose is salvation. It warns, guides, and reminds us that the greatest nations fall when their hearts rise to high. If we learn from Thamud, we rise. If we repeat Thamud, we fall. The choice, just like theirs, is ours.